Hey guys, it's Tim here from Well Actually, and I know it's been a long time since the last video, but I finally got round to making this one. In this video, we're going to look at what Jesus looked like. Now there are tons of theories about how the historic Jesus looked. These range from some weird sickly looking figure to, well, whatever this is meant to be. But instead of just taking some wacky Renaissance artist, or someone who's obsessed with Dan Brown as being our source, let's look and see how Jesus may have actually looked. It's actually fairly simple to calculate Jesus' age from the biblical and extra-biblical accounts, as they're pretty much all in agreement. Based on information from the Gospels, which explain the political situation at the time of his birth, we now place Jesus' birth at around 6 to 4 BC. The book of Luke places the beginning of his preaching ministry around the time that he turned 30. And the Gospels suggest that his ministry was pretty short, with some scholars believing it to have been as short as 1 or 2 years because of the number of Passovers mentioned in the Synoptic Gospels, while other scholars say it was 3 years because of the book of John. Are there any other guesses to Jesus' age? Well, actually, yes. Irenaeus, one of the early church fathers, may have suggested that Jesus was actually about 50. And there is even a source in the Bible, from John 8:57, which might suggest that. But most scholars now believe this is a misinterpretation of Irenaeus' writings. So, I'm pretty sure we can set his age as being in the early 30s. We often see pictures and paintings of a weedy, anemic-looking Jesus, especially within the Roman Catholic tradition. But it would not take the brains of an archbishop to realise that there's no way that he could have possibly looked like this. Although note, many of these paintings are white to reflect his holiness, not his race, possibly in reference to his transfiguration. In reality, Jesus would have looked like any other Semitic peoples, with a dark tan complexion. Accounts of the time make it clear that he looked a lot like the locals. For instance, in the account of the woman at the well, the woman knew that he was a native Israelite. Or in the Garden of Gethsemane, Judas had to point out who Jesus was, as it was not obvious. It is interesting to note though, as we've seen in the Was Jesus Ginger video, which is worth checking out by the way, that many sources, including numerous Islamic ones, describe Jesus as being ruddy or red in complexion. Christians would hold the view that Jesus was ruddy as he is a descendant and fulfillment of King David, who was also described as being ruddy or red in his youth. Height is an interesting one, because of course there's not much information. But we can possibly make a good guess. At the time in the region, restrictions were set on Roman recruits, which meant they had to be about 5'5" or 165 centimeters. Archaeology from the Eastern Roman Empire, a couple of hundred years later, put the average male height in the region as being about 5'4" to 5'7", which is about 162 to 170 centimeters. Which, of course due to the very little changes in diet or lifestyle, was probably similar to the time of Jesus. A good potential source of height details is also Pompeii, which was destroyed about 40 years after the time of Jesus. There the average height of males was about 5'5" or 166 centimeters. So as there is no specific record of Jesus' height, or any hints towards his height, we'll have to use this information and infer that he was probably about 5'5" or 5'6", which seems to have been about the average height at the time. Hair is a very simple one, as there were clear customs at the time. It was shameful for an adult male in the culture to not have a beard, and the custom was also to have fairly short hair. The Bible in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, 14 to 15 also states that it's shameful for males to have long hair. So this seems to have been agreed upon by the Apostolic Church. Like other Semites, it's very likely that his hair was naturally curly and dark in colour. Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches have provided a massive catalogue of paintings and graven images of Jesus, which for the most part make him look quite thin and very weedy. But is this what he really looked like? Well, at the time, meat was something that most common people ate only on special occasions. And as the family that Jesus was brought up in was poor, he probably didn't have a very high protein diet. But this doesn't mean he was a wimp. Far from it, actually. Jesus was brought up as the eldest in a family whose business was construction. And because of this, he would have spent most of his life actually grafting. There was no machinery to make anything easier, and it would have been a lot of heavy lifting, cutting rocks, cutting trees, etc., etc. This definitely would have made him quite strong. It might actually explain how he was able to flip the moneylenders' tables and chase the merchants out of the temple at the end of his ministry. Now, no wimpy, anemic Jesus could have done that. Those tables were incredibly heavy and made with solid wood. So, to sum up, Jesus was likely in his early 30s. He seems like he must have looked like a typical Semite, as there's not too many sources, explaining anything different about his looks. He was probably about 5'5" or 5'6". He had short hair and a beard. He had tan or olive skin, and he was definitely not a skinny wimp of a character. So, how does that make him look? Well, according to the BBC, who did a documentary, which I am ashamed to say that despite having a year and a half since I was meant to make this video, I still have not watched. Apparently, according to them, he looked something like this. But what do you think? Why not let us know below? Hopefully you found that instructing, and if you want to know more, why not check out our episode on the possibility of Jesus being ginger. And until next time guys, stay curious. Once again, I want to say thank you to everyone who has stuck around since the last time we had a video. Hopefully, all being well, there's going to be much more videos coming soon. I'm still just getting used to my brand new computer and trying to find all of my lost documents and everything else. But there's definitely more content on the way. So please guys, get the word out and we will see you next time.